Where I come from on nuclear weapons is that I believe they served a purpose during the Cold War, a very important purpose. And of course you couldn't undo what had been started in Hiroshima back in 1945. But there's no doubt that the proliferation of nuclear weapons during those sort of 30 or 40 years went far beyond what was actually needed to achieve the level of deterrence that they were supposed to set. I am absolutely therefore totally for the idea of having a world free of nuclear weapons, but I believe it's going to be a long process before we get there. I absolutely passionately do not believe that we'll get there quicker by unilaterally disarming in the United Kingdom. I think it is sensible for us to have our capability so we can use that as part of the bargaining power in the debate that lies ahead. But the thing I think which probably concerns me most of all about the great grand horizon of having a world free of nuclear weapons is the level of mistrust that exists in the world today. And if you look at the 9 nuclear states who we believe have got nuclear weapons and look at the levels of distrust amongst them or between them or around them, then how one actually puts that to bed is going to be hugely important before we can actually get around to the process of actually persuading them to disarm, nuclear disarm. From my perspective, as a military person and thinking about nuclear weapons, I strongly believe that nuclear weapons are not part of a military arsenal. A nuclear weapon is very much a political weapon, and therefore I don't have a very strong view about whether or not we should have a nuclear weapon from a military perspective. If you are going to have a nuclear weapon or a nuclear capability, and particularly if it's going to be an ultimate deterrent, then it has to be properly configured, it must be properly deployed, and what we have at the moment, I believe, is the only way of actually deploying a nuclear deterrent. And some who suggest you can have some sort of lesser type of nuclear deterrent, frankly, don't understand the concepts of invulnerability, undetectability, delivery to target, safe delivery to target, or assured delivery to target, and so forth. We, of course, in this country have done a lot to diminish the size of our nuclear capability over the last few years. We're probably getting close to the minimum viable that we can have in terms of warheads now. But I think we've set a great example, and I hope it will be a very powerful message to other countries as we go into this process of revalidating the NPT, encouraging people to go down the CBT route if they haven't already signed up or ratified. And I just hope that that example will be followed. But I do think, though, that in parallel with all that, we must give more emphasis to establishing trust, particularly between those countries or amongst those countries who are currently nuclear powers, the 9 countries who we believe have got nuclear weapons. And I don't really see a day where India and Pakistan, for example, will be confident about setting aside their nuclear weapons while they have the sort of tensions they have, for example, about Kashmir. I can't see Israel being happy to give up their nuclear weapons while they remain very uncertain about what might happen around the Arab countries around them, nor indeed North Korea for that matter, until they have some sort of confidence that they're not going to be frightened in some way in the future by other nuclear states. And Russia, of course, has its own anxieties about the size of America's conventional forces, let alone their own nuclear arsenal. And so I think establishing confidence-building measures which are outside the nuclear talks, if you like, are going to be just as important as moving the nuclear talks along. And that sort of trust aspect of negotiation is going to be one which is terribly important. I've no doubt, though, that in the context of moving forward from where we are today, that the hugely weakened Russian conventional forces compared with what they used to be, when set against the conventional capability of the United States, is one of those areas where, in terms of trust and confidence, there's going to be a real worry by some people, some influential people, I'm sure, within Russia, who will consider it's important to maintain their nuclear capability while there's such a big imbalance between themselves and the main superpower in conventional terms. There's also the matter of trust with regards to verification, particularly as the numbers of weapons start dropping between the big nuclear weapon-holding states, i.e. Russia, in other words, Russia and the state. When you've got thousands of the things, it probably doesn't matter too much about verification. You can deal in large handfuls. Once the numbers do start dropping down, and they start coming down to sort of hundreds or even tens, then it's, having one weapon, having 5 weapons when you said you've only got 3 is actually quite important. And so we're going to have to do something quite clever and develop something quite clever on an international basis, which can give people confidence in verification. Until we've got confidence in a verification process, again, I don't believe we'll ever reach the final end state of having no nuclear weapons while people are still concerned that someone might be cheating. Because I'm afraid it is human nature to be slightly distrustful, if not very distrustful, certainly when it comes to the area into this particular sort of arena.